Hey, what's going on, viewers of the Fantasy Flavor Podcast? My name is Dylan Thomas. Today I'm here with Sanatan and T-Dog. Trenton, how are we doing today, boys?
I'm doing
Doing pretty
really good,
good.
man.
Oh, yeah, we're doing pretty good. It's here at nighttime. We're just chilling, talking about some fantasy football. We had a little bit of some debate before, and it was pretty good, and that just ties us right into what we're talking about today. We're going to be smashing and passing some fantasy football players. And before you dirty minds who are listening think we're talking about that, I mean smash the draft button or passing up the player. I know you guys are out there. I hear you. Are we ready to talk a little bit about our draft smashes and passes, guys?
Yes,
Of course.
I'm excited to hear the banter between you and
The two
Trent
guys
and
that
I.
never agree on anything. Yep.
I just
Dude.
got my popcorn ready, so
I swear, if you
start?
actually have popcorn right now, I'm going to be livid, dude.
No,
Dude,
it's
we're just gonna be talking back and forth. You're just gonna hear.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm going to have fun.
Alright, so let's start on something I think we can almost all get down on. Is we're gonna start off with our smashes here. Because why not, right? So I guess they chose me to start it off here. Apparently they like my voice. So my draft smash is the handsome man who went to prom with another guy and wore the drippiest outfit of the drippers ever, man. Oh my god, did we see that prom outfit that Juju wore?
Yeah. It was pretty nice. I'll give him that.
Oh, it was so good. Okay. Juju. Man, Juju, you gotta buy Juju. When I do my takes, I'm kind of taking a redraft and dynasty approach to it because they both kind of intertwine, right? Because redraft is kind of just like 1 year. Obviously, that first year of production is very important, but I also want to look at it long term. So Juju, where do we begin? He's 22 years old, and he's had an insane market share of yards, which is, for us who may not know, college dominator rating without touchdowns. We do that because touchdowns are fluky, right? The more fluky the touchdowns are, we kind of can't predict it. He had a Met college dominator rating, but his market share of yards was insane. And he topped that off with an elite breakout age, and you got a stud wide receiver prospect coming into the draft. Lands in Pittsburgh, develops him great, and he's just a great player. He's already broken out. At 22 years old, he's had 2 incredibly efficient seasons, and his last season last year was incredible. He was the second option on the team and put up wide receiver 1 numbers. So for me, I just kind of want to read off some things of why you should buy Juju. So let's start off by talking about his elite yards after the catch ability. He was first in the NFL with yards after the catch per catch and just total yards after the catch. He was top 10 in air yards too, which is a predictive metric. So we know he's going to predictively, sticky stat, right? It's going to year to year, he's going to get a lot of yards. He had the second most red zone targets in the NFL. And that's interesting to me because the TDs, right? Do we remember how many TDs he had last year?
Not off the top of my head, I don't.
No,
7.
and he had 7, correct. But he had the second most red zone targets in the NFL. So what happened? Let me tell you. You're not going to believe this. Yeah, he was tackled inside the 2-yard line 5 times last year, and 6 inside the 10. So when you think about that, he was just unlucky. That's unlucky. That's why TDs are so fluctuating, right? They fluctuate. TDs are a fluctuating stat. So you consider that, and it makes sense because his contested catch rate last year, 11th best in the NFL in 2018. And he was efficient, too. Let's not act like he was just some type of volume monster, which he was, but he also has the efficiency to back it up. He was 6th in targets per snap last year in the NFL. He didn't just have a whole bunch of targets, a whole bunch of numbers, because they threw it at him a ton. Each snap and each route he ran, he was efficient, as he finished 9th in yards per route run at 2.16. He had an 82% success rate versus zone coverage as well, so he can do man, he can do zone. You also have to consider, he was consistent too, the 8th most consistent fantasy wide receiver last year. Consistent. He's putting consistently good numbers up. He's not going to bust you much. He'll have a couple bust games because that's how fantasy football works, but he won't bust, right? There's nobody else there to throw it to him. Big Ben can throw it to, really. I mean, you got Deontay Johnson, James Washington, Vance McDonald might be their number 2 target, and he wasn't even targeted much last year. Here's the thing we also have to consider. How will Juju Smith-Schuster step up? Because he's been the number 2 to AB, and everyone likes to talk about 2 things. Can he work outside the slot? And double coverage. How will he do against double coverage? Double coverage, true double coverage, doesn't happen as often as you think. Do we know what the highest percent of double coverage rate was for the highest double covered wide receiver last year, which is OBJ? What's our guess?
11%.
Why do you know these numbers, you freak?
He's our stats guy. He has a reason.
I swear, he must
With
have
purpose.
access.
No, I
Your one
remember that
purpose
I
in
was
life.
looking at the double coverage stats, and I was very surprised that no one was, even close to 15%. So 11% was a guess, but I would have said 11, 12, or 13.
No, it's 11.2%. That's exactly OBJ, one of the best wide receivers in the league. 11.2%. Juju was already doubled, I believe, 9% last year. It's not going to like quadruple or anything. At worst, it's probably going to be like 12%. I mean, the Giants had no other weapons to double cover. Last year when we were talking about OBJ, and it's OBJ. OBJ's elite, right?
No,
He's not going to get double covered a lot.
I'd have to say that I think that number for Juju honestly drops because he was double covered, but then you had Antonio Brown on the other side of the field always facing off against the other team's number 1 cornerback. And that's how a lot of defenses work these days. They put their number 1 back on an island against the other guy's number 1, and then the offense's number 2 receiver is double covered by a safety and their cornerback number 2. That takes away both receivers at the same time.
No, I think it's the other way around, man. I think you always single cover the number 2 wide receiver and then put 2 people on the number 1 wide receiver, a safety and the number 2 cornerback. That's what I thought.
It's honestly just team preference, I think.
Because
like if you have like a top 5 cornerback in the league, you can do that with wide receiver 1s and just take them out, and then have your wide receiver 2 be covered by 2 other guys. So it depends on what team you're playing, their scheme, and all that stuff, I guess.
Yeah. And right, so we're kind of concerned about that, but it's not going to be ridiculously higher than it was last year. We can all agree, right? I'd be surprised if it was higher than OBJ's, which is just 2% more, right? Just true double coverage doesn't happen as often as you think. There's other ways to kind of prepare against Juju and try to shut him down by putting 2 guys on it, but it won't be true double coverage, which is great. And then the other argument, Juju's only good because he plays in the slot, right? We've heard it before. Did you guys know Juju averaged 5 more PPR points per game outside of the when he was outside of the slot? So when he wasn't playing in the slot, he averaged 5 more points per game, and that's also when you include AB not playing. So he averages way more points when he's not in the slot. He averages 5 points more per game when AB isn't playing. He has 1 TD in every one of those games, which shows he's the main touchdown threat. He's going to get a lot of opportunity. In fact, my final stat here is from Nick Ercolano, and it's a quote I used way too much. So Juju saw 166 targets in 2018. AB's gone. Poof. AB had like 160, I think it was 169 targets last year, right? 169 targets gone. So Juju's probably going to receive around like 175 targets. That's fair. All I'm adding is like 9 more targets.
Yep.
Fair, right?
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah,
fair.
totally.
So over the last 5 seasons, there's been 10 wide receivers who have seen 170 plus targets in a season. All of them, but 1, and this was Demaryius Thomas in 2015, were top 4 fantasy wide receivers. And 8 out of the 10 were wide receiver 3 or better. Like the wide receiver 3. And to clarify, if Juju does get 170 plus targets, the floor for him, which was Demaryius Thomas's 2015 season, because I just want to contextualize if it was good, if it was bad. His stat line, 105, 1,300, and 6 touchdowns. Not bad, right? You'd be happy with that. If that's like the worst you're going to get, pretty fair. So, overall, my bold take for this year is, at worst, if Juju Smith-Schuster plays all 16 games, at worst, he'll finish as wide receiver 3 or higher. do we think?
That's not a bold take.
That's
So-
yeah. I'd drop it a little bit. I'd say top 5 wide receiver, but still, top 3 is reasonable. It's
This year I can
definitely
totally see him top 3. I can also see him at top 3 next year. But let's talk about Dynasty. Would you take Hopkins, Adams, OBJ over him when you know that they have quarterbacks who have longer shelf life and who are playing better than Big Ben?
I'd take
Uh,
Hopkins and Adams, but I wouldn't take OBJ. The only reason I don't like OBJ as much is because there's too much targets to go around. There's too many players that need targets on the Browns offense now. There's too much talent, and he's just not going to get as much targets as he used to. He'll still get a lot, and he'll still do great with them, but he won't be as big as he used to.
But
But
his reception percentage will go up. His touchdowns should go up. So, like, what his targets were 160 something, 160 last year, I think, even less. And what if it goes down by 20 and maybe he gets more, 10 catches more? So maybe his receptions goes down by 5 or 10. But if he, gets 2 or 3 or 4 touchdowns more, that will all balance it out.
yeah,
And
it could, but still, I'd still take Juju over Beckham.
Yeah, and OBJ's injury prone. On Sports Injury Predictor, he's projected to miss the most games next year with 7. And if you don't realize how ridiculous that he's the most, Jordan Reed and Tyler Eifert are included in that. We both know those names, right? And how injury prone those names are. That's alarming. If I'm putting a long-term equity into a player, Juju, no injury concerns. And talent's going to produce. Juju's talented. He had 1,000 yards at 22 years old. He almost had 1,000 yards, incredibly efficient season at 21 years old. Okay, the kid's talented. It doesn't matter. I don't care who the quarterback is. Pittsburgh's always been a pretty okay team. I don't need them to be elite. Think about it this way, right? Talent will produce. Juju's talented. He's going to prove that this year. He's going to be the Dynasty wide receiver 1 next year.
and you think Juju is more talented than OBJ?
No, but I also think the situation's better and the targets are better. Opportunity trumps efficiency.
Opportunity is better, but
That's why-
situation is not better. I don't think Pittsburgh's situation is better than Cleveland. For this year, maybe.
For this year,
As I said,
yes.
yeah, for
Mhm.
this year and even next year, I'm giving you 2 years of better production than OBJ. But after that, I don't think so. The next
OBJ,
4,
how
5,
old will OBJ be by then? Because Juju will be
27,
24 by then.
and OBJ will be 27,
OBJ isn't OBJ 26?
Yeah, he'll be
25.
28.
Okay, he will be 25, 28.
Yeah, 20.
Big
So,
deal. Yeah,
you're-
and these wide receivers play till 33, 34, man.
so the problem is, even if you're thinking about OBJ, right, and you're thinking, even if OBJ performs a little bit better, I'm also getting like how many more years of a prime Juju? 3 to 4. I think that's fair, considering OBJ has injury concerns, which are real. There's injury concerns.
It takes one
You're probably
ACL.
getting 3.
It takes one ACL tear to make a player injury prone.
He didn't
No,
tear his
that can
ACL
happen.
though. OBJ didn't tear his ACL though.
No, but I'm
Injury,
saying that
he had,
suppose Juju tears his ACL this year, one play can make that happen, right? He will become an injury concern moving forward. So
Yeah, but why
you
are you
can't.
projecting injury? That's just dumb. Like,
No,
why are
I'm
you
not
projecting
predicting injury. I'm just saying that when you say injury prone, OBJ had just one major injury because of which he lost a year. And after that, if you are talking last year, he had injuries. I think he just did not want to play, and Giants were not doing anything, so he just sat down for two games or so. He would have powered through and played those if he had to, because Julio does the same every year. And Hopkins does the same. Hopkins, last year he was injured he was questionable in so many games, but he powered through and played. So would have OBJ if needed be. But
Here's
they
my
were going
point.
nowhere.
Here's my point. The Sports Injury Predictor, the website full of doctors who are predicting this injury, have him missing more games than Eifert and Reed. I already said that. But my point is, it's just too much, too much concern there for me. It's just too risky. It's just I trust those doctors more than you, Nathan. I'm sorry. It's like, no offense.
No. And one thing I'll add there, I'm just nitpicking. I think your
Yeah.
take is completely fine. I was just nitpicking. Be it 3 or 4, how does it matter? It's all good.
Yeah. All right. My last point I want to make here before I clean up is I just want to prove my track record. I feel like he's kind of Devontae Adams of last year. People were kind of concerned about him being a number 2, stepping into the number 1, which Jordy Nelson had before, with a Hall of Fame quarterback. Big Ben doesn't need to be great, right? He doesn't need to be prime Rodgers. Rodgers wasn't good that last year. He wasn't great. He was pretty solid, but he's this year's Devontae Adams. And I drafted Adams everywhere last year with Saquon, and I won leagues. So let's move on here. I want to talk to you, Sonata. I want to flip it back to you. Tell me on TJ Hawkinson. Why should I smash draft button when TJ Hawkinson is there on the clock?
Because it's all ADP related, and what I am seeing right now is that Hawkinson is going in the 11th round, which is close to people like Goddard and Rudolph. I would take Hawkinson over them um 10 out of 10 times. And what is this love with Goddard suddenly that is creeping up a lot? I'm seeing that everyone is hyping him so much that people are taking Goddard over Hawkinson. Doesn't make sense. Hawkinson's player profiler is a dream for any tight end, and he could legit be like Gronk next year or maybe year after that. And I'm even bullish on him even this year. Not many people are, but I am. I just think that there are not too many capable receivers in Detroit, and he could step it up a lot because of his blocking skills. He's going to be on the field a lot, and those are the times when you have those option plays Bevel is bringing from Seattle. So again, great measurables, great opportunity. Number one Titan Detroit. I just think it's a just slam dunk. I wouldn't take Goddard over him ever.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think Hawkinson is a fantastic tight end. I love him in Dynasty. I'm not as high on him in redraft, but in Dynasty, I think, like you said, he has the potential to be a similar tight end level to Gronk, what Gronk was. He has all the intangibles. He has all the ability. He has the talent. If he can put it all together, he could be the next Gronk. And who wouldn't want to get the next Gronk potential Gronk in
10th or
the
11th
11th
round.
round?
Yeah, and again, if you are not talking about tight end, if you look at some other players going around him, Jamison Crowder, Justice Hill, Eckler, uh, D.D. Westbrook, those all have so many question marks, and I don't see much question marks with Hawk. He has all the chances to be on the field, blocking with his receiving capability. He has one of the most safest hands that a tight end can have. I know he's a rookie. We haven't seen him, but I just don't. I just see this enormous value at his ADP, and that's why I chose him. I have other players too, but I just saw that when I was looking at the ADPs, I just saw no one around him I want anywhere close to Hawkinson.
Right, and exactly. At that point in the draft, you're just shooting for potential, and Hawkinson just has that sky high potential for that point in the draft. Like he could be like he could be a top 5 tight end this season, and he's going so late. That's just a fantastic value. And he'll be a top 5 tight end going forward. It's just seeing where he is now.
Yeah, totally.
100%. I'm a little lower on Hawkinson, not necessarily in Dynasty. I'd take Hawkinson in Dynasty, probably around the same place you guys would. But my problem with a guy like Hawkinson is I don't think he's going to produce year one. Or even Fant. I think Fant could produce a little more year one, and thus he could be more valuable. But that's not my point here. My point here is, if you're talking Dynasty, I'd rather come back and buy year two when I think he'll be a little bit cheaper. Or at worst, I feel like he'll be like around the same value. Especially because I could maybe ship off a late 2020 first if I need a tight end for a guy like Hawkinson. So you know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm gonna wait on Hawkinson because we've had great tight end prospects. Just kind of take a year. It's a hard position to just translate into. And Hawkinson's such a great prospect. OJ Howard's such a great prospect too. David Njoku's such a great prospect 3. Those guys took some time, and they're still taking time. So I'd rather just pause, wait on it. At that point in redraft leagues, though, the only way I wouldn't take Hawkinson, because I agree with you here, is if Austin Hooper's on the board. I really like Austin Hooper, Vance McDonald, those guys. So I don't know where Hooper's going with whatever ADP you're using. Hooper would be the only guy I'd take over him. Maybe Fant too. I think Fant's going to do better year one though. So that's redraft.
Cooper is going after, but I'm talking about Dynasty here. And
Okay.
when you are talking about the year two, he might get cheaper. You have to look at the Titans that are going above him. All of those are going to fall off. I feel that he will be in the same tier as OJ Howard and um, Giants Titan guy.
Oh, what's up?
What's the Titan for the Giants?
Oh, Evan Ingram.
Yeah, Evan Ingram and Howard. He will be in the same tier, and you are not going to get him cheap at that point. I feel he will produce year one, and people always look at the rankings of the Titans. Right now, they see a few Titans which are over him in the rankings, but they are going to drop off so much after this year that he's going to, you know, go top of the rankings, by default. So I don't think that strategy will work with Hawkinson. Might work with Fant, but not with Hawkinson. Moving forward, the buying deep. That's just my feeling. That's why I'm here.
Hey, if you believe it, Hawkinson's a really good prospect, 8th overall. And it's hard to really pick apart Hawkinson. Pretty safe. It might be a little expensive, but according to that ADP, might be pretty cheap, honestly. So
the
definitely
only thing
someone to consider there.
the only thing scaring me with Hawkinson, I love him as a prospect. I think he'll do fantastic. The only thing that's kind of holding me back a little bit from just buying him like higher than I do is that Ebron was the same way. He was a top, like, I think he was a top 10 pick, the tight end for Detroit, and he ended up, I mean, he did decent, but he didn't quite perform up to what everybody thought he would. That's the only issue with it. I still think Hawkinson is the better overall talent. I think he'll do better, but we need to see it a little bit, kind of.
Okay,
I just,
the thing here is, Trenton, is that Lebron 4 5 years ago, Titans were not that much used passing like they are right now. Other thing is Hawkinson has better hands than Ebron. Ebron's drop rate was higher. One more thing, Hawkinson is way much better blocker than Ebron is. So his snap rates are going to be much higher than Ebron. More on the field, more opportunities. So I don't think they are comparable.
right.
That's fair. They're different talents, but they're both top 10 talents, right? They're both top 10 picks.
Yeah, but when
Right.
they took Hawkinson in top 10, no one like raised the eyebrows a lot. Only because of one of the defender, people said that they could have taken the defender rather than Hawkinson. But as a talent, no one raised eyebrows. When they took Ebron, not many people were very happy too.
I think he's going to be similar to OJ Howard. I think he's going to be blocking a lot.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the thing that translates early on. Even though he may have a higher snap percentage, some options down there at tight end, like Noah Fant, which is kind of common. Just Dynasty, I think those two get thrown at each other a lot. He could have a lot more routes run. So, like even though the snap share may be higher for Hawkinson, you have a more routes run, which means more opportunity. So, I feel like he'll be blocking a lot because that's what happened with OJ Howard. He was blocking a lot, and he got eased into the position. It's also going to be a run first team, and that Tampa Bay team was a pass first team. So,
Quick question: would you take
Mhm.
Evan Ingram or OJ Howard in Dynasty?
OJ, because he's going to have better long-term value. Like I can see Evan Ingram actually being out of the league in a couple weeks,
So same thing.
years.
I see them in the same thing, same vein. See, Evan Ingram has more routes run than OJ Howard for sure. But now you are giving the same logic that I think will apply for Hawkinson and Fant. I
You're
think
underrating
Hawkinson,
Fant's blocking.
no, but Hawkinson is much more polished, so many things, and um, he, I think he's just can't miss prospect. That's what I feel. Maybe I'm higher on him than you are. I just feel he's way too talented.
Oh, he's pretty safe, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have to settle for
exactly.
Hawkinson. No problem. Hey, I don't hate Hawkinson. Like you said with Juju. And we're just nitpicking. And even for our passes, we're probably just nitpicking too. Because
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I can twist everything. And that's the important thing here to understand with these smashes and passes. Like, we're twisting data right now. Like, let's just be honest. Like, we're purposely not bringing up counterpoints to our arguments. And it's just kind of, you got to think about it too. You got to think about the pros and cons. Right now, we're giving you the pros of players we like. Consider it. And that's not us trying to be evil. That's us trying to sell you on the player because we like them. Let's just be honest, right, guys? We agree with that?
Yep.
Exactly.
And
I totally
also,
agree.
don't hate the player, hate the ADP. Every player has pros, every player has cons, but we just love the ADPs, just hate the ADPs. That's
Yeah.
what we are talking here.
Definitely my pass has something to do with that too. But I want to pass it over, if you're okay with me passing over the torch to T-Dog to talk about his smash. Who are you smashing the draft button on when they're on, when you're on the clock and they're there on your board? Who are you smashing, my friend?
See, I gotta
Jordan
go
Roberts.
with Dak Prescott because, like we're
Whoa,
talking about
quarterback.
ADP. He's going. I think he's going as like QB 16 right now. A lot of the time, anywhere from QB 16 to QB 20. And in his first 3 seasons in the league, he's finished as QB 6, QB 10, QB 11. He's always been a consistent QB 1 performer in each year he's played. Now he's got a really high top tier wide receiver to pair with in Amari Cooper. And he did even better with Amari Cooper last season than he did early in the season. And I think like after he got Amari Cooper, he was the QB 8 or something like that, QB 7, QB 8 for the remainder of the season. And so he's going to be a great quarterback. He's going to be a great value there. And he's going just so late in the draft that you can grab him and you can wait on your quarterback so hard for him. And that's what I do in most every league. I try to wait on my draft. I grab all my wide receivers, my running backs, I grab a tight end or two, and then I grab Dak because he's going to be a QB 1, but he's going anywhere from 16th to 20th quarterback. So yeah, it's just insane value there is what I have to go with.
In
Yeah.
Dynasty, you mean? He's going from 16 to 20.
I I believe in Dynasty it might be a little bit different, and I'm not sure. Here, I
I
can
think he's going like
pull it up real
14th or
quick.
15th in Dynasty, like 12 to 15.
Yeah, I'll pull it up, but in
Here's a
Dynasty,
question for you. Would you take Kyler Murray or Dak Prescott?
um,
Dak.
Dak
Kyler
in
Murray
Dynasty?
yeah, I'd probably take Dak
Oh,
just
wait,
because
in
I like the
Dynasty,
proven guys.
Dynasty Murray. Sorry, didn't reach off Dak. My bad. I'm dumb.
No,
I'm
we are
so
talking
dumb.
about Dynasty here.
In Dynasty, I might still go Dak just because, as I've said before, I like the proven player. I like to know what I'm getting. But I mean, you could definitely make the case for Murray, like Dylan likes Murray, but I
Oh,
just have to go with
yeah.
that guy that I know what I'm getting. That's just how I'm gonna be.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I think I am way too high on Murray, so that's why I asked. And their ADPs are very similar in Dynasty, but I'm pretty sure that Murray's ADP is going to shoot up right now. So I think Dak is a great, great value. How come you sold him to me, man, in our league,
Which league are we talking about?
the Grinders League? You sold
Oh,
Dak to me, man. I was
I'm
so happy.
I'm just stockpiling picks right there. I have 8 first-round picks next season, 3 seconds, and 4 firsts the fall or 3 firsts the following
Yeah,
season.
great, great haul. Yeah, I have no points basically. I just think Dak is a steal right now. In
Right.
redraft, in Dynasty, everywhere.
Can I explain like why Dak's going so low? I'm theory crafting. Like Dak's going low because of the fact that he might not be the best in real life quarterback. It's
Yep.
just that like people like not only hate the Cowboys, it's also the fact that which is true. A lot of people don't like the Cowboys. Whatever. Not my point. My point is like Dak isn't like the best real life quarterback, but that doesn't matter because he rushes, he passes. He has a good line, good running back, good receiver. Michael Gallup could really step up too. Like Jason Witten's back, which just helps him. Jason Witten, whatever.
Yeah.
My point is with Dak is you have to sometimes realize that fantasy is different from real life. That's why we call it fantasy. People's fantasies are not their realities, right? And that's just kind of the same way how it works with fantasy football. That's why people like Lamar Jackson, not really the best NFL quarterback, pretty solid in fantasy, right? So that's
But
why
would
Dak
you
Prescott's
take him in
ADP is so low.
Dynasty? What do you think about Lamar Jackson in Dynasty?
I'll take Lamar Jackson in Dynasty as well. Like if
What's his
I
ADP?
usually his ADP in Dynasty here. Let me pull this
After
up. It's
15th,
really
maybe.
low. I think it's like
Yeah.
it's like
It's going close to Dak.
15 to 20 is what it is usually.
Yeah.
So it's about where Dak is. But if I miss on Dak, I'll go Lamar Jackson just because he has that upside. Like he's gonna have a lot of. I think personally, Lamar Jackson this season is gonna have more QB1 seasons than he won't have or QB1 weeks than not. He's gonna have a lot. He's gonna have some really good weeks, and he's gonna have quite a few of them.
Here's a better question, this or that. Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen in Dynasty?
Probably, Josh Allen's the other guy that I really like. If I miss out on both those guys, I'll go Josh Allen. But honestly, I might even go Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson just because he's the better overall passer, and he also has that same rushing upside.
We talking about Jackson or Dak?
Jackson.
No, Jackson versus Allen. I know
It's been an evolution of a debate. I love it.
I'm digressing a bit, but these or that questions really helps the listeners, I feel, because these are the decisions that will come up when they are drafting. So that's why I'm
Right.
putting forward a few of them.
And in most drafts, I'll go Dak. If I miss Dak, I'll go Lamar Jackson. Then a couple rounds later for my QB2, I'll grab Josh Allen.
I think Josh Allen is going before Lamar.
Yeah,
here
that's
it's
fair.
Lamar Jackson is ranked 15th and Josh Allen is ranked 21st.
I think
Lamar-
you might be
I can pull
seeing
up another one and see what it is.
redraft maybe.
And redraft?
No, I think you might be seeing the redraft thing. I just feel Josh Allen is a safer prospect than Lamar Jackson in Dynasty. That's what I feel.
Yeah, and it's still here. It's Dynasty PPR, regular everything scoring. Lamar Jackson is going QB 15, Josh Allen QB 21.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's crazy, but
Josh Allen also has the higher peaks too. Josh Allen has the higher peaks. Lamar Jackson was kind of, I don't remember the exact numbers, but he fumbled a lot, which held back his upside a little bit. He didn't have as many of those really big blow-up games that I think people think he did. So I'd rather have Josh Allen at that point.
Sorry to cut you off, but my main concern is the injury thing. I think Lamar Jackson is more fragile than Josh Allen, and their playing style is the same. I feel Josh Allen can take more blows than Jackson can.
Oh, Josh Allen's a big boy.
Yeah.
Do we want to? Do you have anything else to say about Dak, or do you want to move on to some passes?
We can move on.
Damn, Sinatson spoke for Trenton. He was like, "Nope, we don't." He's like, "No more Dak."
Should I bring my popcorn now?
I feel like we could play the epic music here. No, I'm kidding. Okay, we're gonna get to the passes here, and this is gonna be a debate. This might take a little longer. Excuse my chair crack, and I gotta crack my back because this is gonna get intense. Jeez, how do you want to do this, Trenton? Because we're gonna debate here about Kenyon Drake. Do you want me to just read everything I got? Do you want me to read half of what I got? I feel like it's unfair if I read everything I got, though, because then you got a huge advantage. How do you want to do this?
Up to you. Just get us started, and we'll just go for it.
You warm up the listeners a bit, and then Trenton can pounce on you, and I can just have fun.
Yeah. So not just pipe in whenever you want.
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
give
sure.
room for you. Just
You'll interrupt
say,
me
hey, I got something to
mid-sentence.
say. We'll just stop. We'll just.
Oh,
hold.
please, please.
I'll be like, Kenyon Drake is a decent running back, and then you'll already jump in. Kenyon
Yeah.
Drake is not a decent running back. He's the greatest running back of
No,
all time.
okay. You know how people hate that guy who tries to stop a cat fight? I don't want to
Mhm.
be that person, you know?
You might.
I
All
don't.
right. I'll watch the time just in case. But all right.
Okay, that was kind of harsh, though. I have to say. Come on, son.
It was a metaphor, man. I'm not saying you guys are girls or anything. I'm just saying that
I know.
that fight will be fun to listen to. I don't want to be the guy who stops you guys. Just
Yeah,
don't
I'm
fight.
messing with you.
That's fair. Okay. Are we ready for Kenyon Drake?
Yep.
Yep.
I want to preface this though. I don't hate Drake. I want to just say I'm actually +2 compared to consensus ranking on Drake. So I don't hate Drake. My problem with Drake is, in the wise words of Snatton that he keeps saying, I don't hate players, I hate ADPs. And Kenyon Drake's ADP is going up. It's trending up. Everywhere you go, it's trending up. On some sites, which I'll break down later, it's ridiculous how much it's trending up. Granted, different format, we'll break it down. So, one thing with considering passing on Drake, I'd say, and passing on any of these players, and you guys can agree or disagree with me here, is that it depends on what format or what league format you're doing, like what league host you're doing, because the ADPs could be different. Do we agree with that? Just before we talk about our passes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's break down Drake then.
Mhm.
You guys hate me
Mhm.
sometimes.
Mm.
I feel like you two hate me sometimes, but all right. Kenyon
Only
Drake.
sometimes.
Pacers suck. Okay, Kenyon Drake. I don't think he's bad. He's pretty good, but he's not a workhorse, right? And so, what does that mean? I'll break down a little bit, but he's going to be coming back on probably a bottom 3 offense, right? I feel like that's pretty reasonable projection. He's upside in the receiving game. Gore's gotten now 2, which can only help, but Gore didn't have any receptions, so I don't know how much that's going to go up by. I think he's going to be fine this year. I don't think Drake's going to be bad, but I think when you compare him to the players that he's going around, even the running back, one running back in particular, which I love, and some wide receivers, a lot of wide receivers, I just think it's a pass for me. I'd rather have other guys. I don't hate the player. I hate where he's going compared to other players I love more. I think that's fair. Kenyon Drake, he's on a bad offense with probably a bottom 5 offensive line, a bottom 5 wide receiver core, awful QB. I don't think Josh Rosen will be much better this year because he really doesn't have much help in him. A rookie head coach, an offensive coordinator who comes from the Patriots, likes to run committees. They've made 0 offensive improvements. I don't think you can disagree with me. There's really nothing better about this offense. Maybe QB, but Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh Rosen, how much of an upgrade is that? If you want to argue that, that's an argument. And it's, kind of, TDs. I want to talk about his TDs because he finished his RB 14.
Dude, before you move on, sorry, don't you ever talk bad about Ryan Fitzpatrick, man.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. He's got his button-down shirt, his shades
Yeah,
on.
please, dude.
Magic.
He's the dude, man. Come on.
He's the
Don't
most...
hate the player,
Show
hate
some-
the ADP.
No, you
That's a
can't.
Wonderlic score, dude. That Wonderlic score. Oh, my
There
God.
is no hate with Fitzpatrick, man. He is the dude.
It's magic to you. Jeez.
Oh yeah.
Okay, move on.
Drake had a lot of touchdowns, right? 173 touches, 9 touchdowns. It's a lot. It might not be a lot for some people, but when you consider how bad his offense was, I think bottom 5, bottom 10, kind of a lot. And we talk about touchdowns being fluky, fluctuating stat, right? He was barely used in the red zone. So he won't really get used in the red zone that often next year, probably, is my guess. Frank Gore's a beast, but Kalen Ballage, workhorse kind of built back, he could steal some touches. And I want to back this up with kind of just his usage rate in general. Guess how many goal line carries he had last year?
Drake?
Yeah.
12.
I'd say like 10, 15.
1. He had 1 goal line carry and 9 touchdowns.
See, but that's why they had Frank Gore.
I know,
Gore was their goal line back every single time.
and Ballage could
Agreed.
step into that role, but that's not even when Ballage doesn't. That's not my point. He had 9. These touchdowns weren't predicted touchdowns. The only predicted touchdowns, in my opinion, are goal line carry touchdowns, right? We've seen it with Gurley. That's why Gurley had a whole bunch of touchdowns in his breakout year, I think in 2017 to 2018, right?
But isn't that a
Those are the touchdowns that
plus point for Drake that his goal line touches will go up this year?
Sure, but the other touchdowns that you're having, my point is the touchdowns, these are fluctuating touchdowns because he could have more goal line carries, but he had 9 touchdowns, right? And that's a fair argument. That's why you can kind of argue anything anyway. But none of the touchdowns he had were kind of predictive, you know what I mean? Touchdowns that will sticky touchdowns that will go year to year to year to year. That's the problem. You know, it's not that he didn't produce touchdowns. Like, those goal line carries are going to go up. I mean, I would have guessed around the same place as you guys did. But it's the fact that none of the touchdowns he had last year really translate year to year to year. I mean, one of them was the Miami Miracle, which T-Dog thinks I'm so salty about, but my Patriots won the Super Bowl. I'm not
still
salty about it.
Yeah.
Patriots won the Super Bowl. I don't
Still
care what
salty.
happened in the regular season. 6 rings.
Man, you guys
1,
lost to
2,
Miami.
3, 4,
Patriots should
5,
be
6,
ashamed of it.
6,
Still salty.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Dude.
6.
Don't be as Patriots fan on the podcast.
Oh yeah, killing me.
we're getting a little
Take your
off
own
topic
sweet
here.
time later.
Oh, sorry. I'll continue here. His yards per carry and yards per touch, they're pretty good, right? But those, another thing that don't translate year to year to year, right? Shout out to Ryan Miller. We talked about that. Smaller sample sizes lead to better efficiency numbers, but smaller efficiency numbers normally end up being higher just because, less workload, more energetic you are. Another reason why is just, I want to get T-Dog here a chance to talk. I got plenty more, but just RB's bust over 50% of the time in where he's taken at his ADP. So this is where I talk about depending on where you're drafting is where it's different. Like Sleeper, I think Kenyon Drake's a great value. On something like Draft.com, where he's being taken over David Montgomery, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, not so much. And that's just one spot behind Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Kerryon Johnson, Aaron Jones, those kind of backs, right? So he's being kind of elevated into a tier, which I think he's closer to Philip Lindsay, Mark Ingram, than he's closer to Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. And I draft 2 running backs early. So I'm not finding myself having to take Drake there because I've already prepared myself. Keep in mind, Josh Rosen killed David Johnson's value. He didn't want to pass to him much, and Drake is a receiving back. He didn't want to pass to David Johnson much. Is that the scheme? Maybe. Is that just Josh Rosen preferring wide receivers and tight ends? Possibly. He's also not athletic. 30th percentile SPARQ score. Not athletic. His BMI small too. 6'1", 211. 6th percentile BMI. He really can't handle that a lot of touches, and that's why I start to think maybe this guy isn't a workhorse. Before I continue, I don't want to bore you guys with my voice. T-Dog, is there anything you disagree here with Drake before I continue? Everything. Everything.
There you go.
Everything.
I'm gonna start back with the when he was drafted in 2016, his scouting report. There was nothing to say. They had one thing to say about him not being a workhorse back in college, which you tend to bring up a lot, that he wasn't in college. That means nothing. In college, it says here, I'm quoting Bleacher Report, another popular question is, if Drake is so talented, why couldn't he start at Alabama? The answer is obvious, that Yeldon and Henry were much better suited to the offensive scheme and were also healthier options. Now, healthier, that was the issue with Drake coming out of college, but he's played in every single game so far in his entire NFL career, so I don't think that injury concern is as big anymore. Now, the issue is really still with scheme. Adam Gase didn't pass to his running backs. He was in the bottom 10 or bottom 15 teams in the league every single season for the past 3 seasons in running back targets. In 2016, they threw the ball to running backs 88 times, the Dolphins. 2017, 100 targets for the running backs. In 2018, 103. Now this year, they're bringing in a new head coach from the Patriots system and a new offensive coordinator from the Patriots system, where they have a running back by committee, which is what Drake is good at. Have 130 targets, 2016, 2017, 158 targets. 2018 led the league, 173 targets for their running backs. Now you might say, hey, they spread the ball around a lot to their committee of running backs for pass catching backs. Well, I mean, looking at James White last season, of the 173 targets for their running backs, he had 123 of them. James White, it has 123. The one running back had all those receiving targets for them, and so they're gonna be passing to a running back. They're gonna be passing to one running back. The best pass catching running back on that team is Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake is going to catch a lot of passes no matter what. Sure, even if he is still put in a committee with Ballage, he's going to catch the ball a lot, and he's going to be just fine with that. And it's insane to think. I mean, even if you're worried about him being a workhorse. Okay, maybe he's not a workhorse, but he's still going to catch a lot of balls. He's still going to be great in PPR. So what's the issue with that?
Like I said, he's not. I like his receiving upside. I think that was the first thing I said. Not a workhorse, but upside for receiving game. Fair. Like that's the one thing why
And they're going to pass
I'm
the
higher
ball a
on
lot.
consensus entry.
for
Are you
running back.
sure? When
Yes.
their offense is going to be that bad, you
They're
could
gonna pass the ball
argue
a lot
Arizona
because-
would have to pass a lot, and they didn't pass a lot because the offense was ass, right?
You want to know why they're going to pass a lot? They're going to be playing from behind so much.
Couldn't you have
because-
said that with Arizona? And where did they rank? A team like Arizona? You know what I mean? Like a bad offense? Like they
Let's-
weren't
I'll
high
pull it
on
up.
passing stats. I'm curious, actually. I don't know.
For
I could
total-
be wrong.
Total passing attempts for total targets overall last season, Arizona Cardinals, you say that they were one of the worst teams in passing? No, they were the third most passing team, third highest passing team.
Passing
had 600
attempts?
Yeah, total targets overall.
That doesn't mean it's good quality, though. You gotta,
for
this is
running
where
backs.
quality
Let's
comes
go to
in.
running backs. Running backs. They were the third highest team targeting their running backs. If you have a bad offense, that means you're gonna be throwing the ball a lot. And to say that they have a bad offense so they won't throw the ball, that's insane. They're going to throw the ball.
Yeah, but I could also argue that. All right, you go ahead, Sonata. I know you want to say something.
And for running backs, when you talk about quality, usually the quality is good because you are not throwing it far away.
Oh yeah, that's fair. But my point is, there's not gonna. You know what I mean? Here's my point, Drake. The Patriots is a bad example because you threw me total numbers. The Patriots run a ton of plays because their great offense can only stay on the field, stuff like that, right? And I mean, James White, fine, fair argument. Who else was there? Rex Burkhead injured all year. Sony Michel couldn't catch. He dropped everything. Deion Lewis the year before spread it around a little bit more. Remember Deion Lewis? He was like the Patriots back that year. That's
So
fair.
who's going to catch the
Balaj
Dolphins?
can catch. Balaj can catch.
Yep,
Don't forget
Balaj can
Balaj.
catch, yes.
Balaj can catch. He's a
Balaj
good
can
receiving
catch.
back.
The guy who had 11 targets in 12 games last season.
He's a good receiving back out of
The
college.
guy who had 11 targets in 12 games.
He was the third running back on the depth chart. Like,
Yeah, I
Come
think
on,
Balaj
man.
will
Like,
get
he
more
was-
targets this
But
year.
still, the third running back on the Pats depth chart. Who is that? Who's that was getting those targets? And they still put up that
Cordell
those few
Patterson, to
targets.
answer your question.
Yeah,
Because Rex
okay.
Burkhead was injured all year.
But they still put up very little targets. I mean, it's insane. And
You
it's just-
want to talk
can't-
about college scouting reports? Balaj was supposed to be a great receiving back with workhorse size. Now, is he the best runner? Maybe not. But that's my point. Like, he might steal more receiving work than Frank Gore could. He's a better
totally.
receiving back than Frank Gore.
Oh, definitely.
was in
okay,
Miami.
yeah, he's a better receiving back, but he's still not going to get all
100%.
those targets. I mean, Drake is going to
I'm
get
not.
those
He doesn't
targets.
need to get all those targets. He just needs to get enough to cap Kenyon Drake's upside.
Bold take: Kenyon Drake gets 100+ targets this season.
Oh,
How many did
Too
he have
much.
last year? 73.
Um,
Actually, it was 73.
yeah, I think that sounds right. But he'll get 100 or more targets this season.
Okay. Can I just continue on my points though?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm kind of lower. I can see Kenyon Drake putting decent numbers this year, but what's coming up? Boom, boom, ba-da. Play the Jaws theme song. 2020 RB class. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da. Drake's free agency too. So Drake's a free agent. No one likes my humor, man. I'm gonna be alone forever.
no,
Drake's
You were not in. We like you, Humor. That's fine. Never mind.
Drake's a free agent
Definitely
this
not
season.
forced. I mean,
Drake's a free agent this year.
Yeah.
After this year's over, in 2020 RB class. The RB class was like 12 RBs who could like legitimately be really good players in the league, right? Why pay Drake? And even if you pay Drake, they could just grab somebody in the first 3 rounds. Fair. And then what happens? Drake's upside once again is capped out, and it's very possible they maybe could take over for Drake, or Drake could go to another team. And before we are like, remember Tevin Coleman last year when everyone's super excited, and then he went to San Francisco on a huge committee, right? That's my point. So we
Yeah.
kind of just don't know with Drake. Like
Devontae
Drake,
Freeman.
yeah, but Freeman, where's been Freeman the past couple years?
Injured.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna let that point
Drake
stand there
doesn't
for
have that injury issue.
Did
I
he
mean,
just have
he
injury
did coming out
issues
of college, but he hasn't gotten injured so far in
because
his
he's
entire
been
career.
used sparingly.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
I'm
think
saying,
that's his role. I
That's
still
his
think that he
role.
can
He's in
go
his
to a
role.
new team and still be a good receiving back.
Oh yeah, possibly.
Exactly, and
but
if
my point is, I don't know. Was Drake? I'd rather take somebody who I feel like has more long-term confidence.
even
But
if
there
he's
are
a
very
free
few
agent,
backs, man, like
as a
that.
free agent, he's not going to go to a team that doesn't need him. He's going to go to a team that'll either need a running back or they'll need a running back that will fill the role of a receiving back, and he's still going to put up good numbers. Just like James White's always going to put up good numbers as the second back on the Pats offense because he's going to receive the ball compared to a guy who won't. He's going to get all those receptions. Drake is always going to be one of the top receiving backs in the game. He's going to be really good at that. And that will give him the upside that you need to have him as an RB2, RB3.
Hey, if he's my RB3, I'm okay with it. But
Yep.
on some sites, he's going as your RB2, and that I'm not okay with. I don't trust them because it's consistency numbers.
But that's very,
Um,
very low RB2, man. Like, would you be very, very mad if he's like going instead of 26, he's going at 23? So 23 is low RB2, 26 is RB3, which is
No,
where
I-
you're fine.
Here's why I'd be a little concerned though, because even though I have him ranked as like RB22, can I just knock one point out of the way with like Drake not giving him, Gase not giving him enough touches because he can apparently handle it. He gave Jay Ajayi 300 plus touches in 12 starts, so he has no problem giving running backs a whole bunch of touches at least. Whether those are carries compared to receptions, that's a fair argument that you could bring up.
No, Trenton,
But
if you
he-
think
Drake-
that he's a workhorse, he's not.
Right,
he
I'm
gave
not.
Jay
I'm not
Ajayi
saying he's
300
going
plus
to be.
touches.
I don't think Drake is going to take on like overall total workhorse numbers. He'll get more touches this season because Gore's gone, and then those touches need to go somewhere. But he's not going to take on all like a full workhorse role. But he's going to get a few more touches. He's going to get more receptions, and he's just overall like the total like his overall efficiency. His lowest average in his career, I think, was 4.5 yards per carry, and he's just efficient enough that he's going to put up numbers for you. I always target him as a low RB2, high RB3, which is where he's going, and that's what I target him for. I won't take him as an RB1. I don't want him as an RB1.
Jeez, that'd be a
But as
headache, dude.
as an RB2 or an RB3, I love him.
Now here's why I really hate him though. Here's my main point. David Montgomery, like no matter the league, I'm always finding myself, it's like David Montgomery, sometimes a guy like Darius Guice, and Kenyon Drake. And I'm sorry, and I think we can all agree we're always going Montgomery over Drake. And then Drake's
Yes.
gone by the time my next pick comes up. That's why I'm passing, because they're just guys that I think could be better. In Dynasty, I like Guice more because I think he has more of a secure long-term future and better talent, right? And I don't know if the situation's better. Not a better situation, let's be honest.
No. I mean, Drake could have a much better situation next year than Guys could, and who knows what.
Healthy guys, maybe Adrian Peterson's gone. Could be debatable.
But
But yeah, I
Bryce
see your
Love is
point.
there. Bryce Love is a good
Bryce
running
Love
back.
can't stay healthy.
That was the issue with Kenyon Drake coming out of college, and he hasn't been injured once throughout his career.
And what if
Health
Guys?
has nothing to do with it, really. Unless
if
Health has
Guys
you're
did not stay
100%.
injured, unless you're injured going into the NFL. A lot of guys that had like
Yeah, but
on their
Bryce Love is
on the
injured
report
going into the
saying
NFL.
they have an injury history, they don't really get hurt as much in the NFL. It's questionable if they're going to get injured or not. Nobody knows, and there's
Bryce Love
no
just
way
tore
we
his
can predict
ACL.
that.
So that's one of those players. Bryce Love just tore his ACL. Like twice. Rodney Anderson was twice. Sorry, but he just tore his ACL. So he's,
So
So
did
did
whatever.
Geis.
Guys tore his ACL too last year.
Yeah,
I
so did
know.
Geis.
I know, but my point is to talk about one injury-prone running back. Who I believe Love tore his ACL after Geis. One, I think Love has also had more injury concerns with the ankles and stuff. I think Geis, maybe it's just an ACL. Don't quote me on that. Can I make my final point about Drake? I want to move on here. Is that cool?
Yep.
Yep.
I want to contextualize the numbers. So my point with the guy like Kenyon Drake is he had 7 games last year under 4 yards per carry, and he only had 5 games with 10 plus carries. So he's obviously not going to carry many balls, which is okay. There can be a role for that, right? That's fine. But my point is he isn't consistent. He's going to be a nightmare to start for you. Maybe if you don't have a good bench, then you'll end up starting Drake every week and you'll hit on his highs. And, you'll probably have to start him during his lows too, but you'll hit him on his highs. He finished 23rd in fantasy football consistency rating. If he had a decent bench, I don't think he was too startable. He goes off against the New York... I'm looking at his game log right now. Goes off versus the New York Jets in week 2. And then when he rematches them, puts up a dud. Oakland, everyone was saying starting him. I even looked it up to see when people were saying start this guy and sit this guy. Oakland puts up 3 points in PPR. New England puts up 2.6. And then next time they face New England, granted it was the Miami Miracle touchdown, which is fluky. Not my point. Then he puts up 15. Good game, right? Cincinnati blows up. So that gives you trust that, wow, he can start him versus good matchups. Detroit does the same. And then here comes Houston. Bottom 5 against the running backs. Blows up, right? You probably benched them that week. And then once he blows up that week, faces the Jets, faces Green Bay, busts both those games. Then here comes Indy. He's just busted 2 games. Indy top 10 rushing defense, top 10 against fantasy. Running backs, even in PPR leagues, bottom 10. Blows up. Then Buffalo puts up a mad game. New England puts up a mad game. And then busts, and then goes off. It's just so inconsistent, And it's when I contextualize it, right, I realize, hey, it's not like someone like Marlon Mack last year. When Marlon Mack's won higher, but here's my point on Marlon Mack. You knew when he was blowing up, and you knew when to fade him. You knew to fade him versus Jacksonville, but start him versus a team like Oakland and Buffalo. That's all I want to say about Drake. Are we ready to move on? I don't want to talk about Drake forever.
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, sorry guys. Our Drake, Drake.
I
it's
just
a
have
love-hate
one
thing.
here more. Sorry, is that when you are talking about those RB2, RB3 borderline guys, they will always have around 50% bust games. So you
Mhm.
can't look too much into that. But yeah, I mean your point is well taken. I might
Yeah,
not agree with it completely, but it is well taken.
I just think it's what games he busts versus what games he succeeds in. At least with some of those other names that are boom bust, which is fine, boom bust player, whatever. It's just, when can I
Yeah,
actually trust them?
no, even with elite guys, you cannot always predict that.
Oh no, everyone's gonna have a bust game. That's cool. But
Yeah.
speaking of bust games, Jarvis Landry had a lot of them. Tell me why we here, I believe this is Trenton, why you don't like Jarvis Landry.
I'm fading Jarvis Landry because there's too many players that need targets on that offense. You got Odell Beckham Jr., you got David Njoku, you got who's their third wide receiver? Who's
Callaway.
still right, Antonio Callaway. You got Nick Chubb, who isn't a great receiving back, but he does enough. And then week 10, you'll have Kareem Hunt back, and there's so many targets to go around. It's just that's what I'm worried about for there. I mean, he's going. What's his ADP? I need to check this again. It's shoot, I probably should have looked at this right before we started, but I think he's like around 20.
Jarvis Landry?
Yeah, 25.
24, 25, I guess.
So, but that's above guys like DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Calvin Ridley. You got guys below him that I'd take above him. You got guys right above him that I'd take before him. And his ADP is just way too high, honestly. It's there's too much to worry about with that. And it's just I don't know. He's always had like over 100 targets every season of his career, I think. That's going to drop significantly this season. I think he'll have or maybe 80 to 90 targets this season.
That's fair. Landry from me. I sold him for Leonard Fournette in a Dynasty League. What do we think about that? I sold Landry and Balash for Leonard Fournette in a Dynasty League. I'm just trying to sell Landry because he made me move back into the slot, but I don't like the situation at all.
Yeah, I don't
not
agree
for
with
me.
the 90 to 100 targets. I think he will get around 120 targets.
Whoa!
Yeah,
You think the Browns are going to be
Odell
like this
Beckham,
year's
David
Chiefs?
Njoku, Antonio
Jeez.
Callaway, all those guys.
Oh,
And
Rashard Higgins,
Joke,
put some respect.
yeah, he's good. And Joku, he's going to get more targets around the end zone. So yeah, Landry's touchdown totals is capped, but I think he'll still get around 70 receptions.
Not bad. I think more upside though if I'm picking there.
Yeah.
I think there's names with more upside like Mike Williams, DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin.
Right.
Kind of like my argument. There's just more names I like.
Oh yeah.
Exactly, but yeah, it's all preference of who you like, though. I mean, honestly, you can make arguments for anybody in those ranges and say, "Hey, I like this guy a lot. He goes up there." It's how we rank these players. We don't know. We don't know consent. We don't have. We don't follow consensus rankings. Nobody follows consensus rankings other than like the people who are totally new to it. Everybody has their own idea of who they like more than another player, and it's just you need to know where you're going.
Okay. That's everyone is in love with Baker, right? That he's going to do really well. So if he is going to pass that much, it's not going to go to Beckham. So I think he can sustain two wide receivers. So Mike Williams, Chris Godwin, everyone is a wide receiver two in their offense. So what's different between Landry and them?
They don't have
Because
OBJ there, plus Kareem Hunt, plus Rashard Higgins, plus Antonio Callaway,
No,
plus
right,
David
those
Njoku.
you want to. They have Evans. If you have
I'm
OBJ,
fading.
they have Evans. They have Keenan Allen. Everyone has a top wide receiver with them.
I'm fading. I'm fading on uh Mike Williams too because
Oh yeah, me too.
they got Hunter Henry there as a tight end. That's going to take some targets.
Why
Love
not
Hunter.
It's
Godwin?
Godwin. I'm fading him some too. I mean,
No,
honestly, those
you
guys.
buy Godwin.
I like him, but I think he's being overhyped a little bit. But I'd still take him like right around Jarvis Landry. I'd probably take him just a little bit higher than Landry.
Okay,
But
then it makes sense because most people have like Landry at least a round later than Godwin has just gone crazy. So everyone
right.
has like a round and or a round and a half higher this Godwin higher than Landry. That doesn't make much sense to
And
me
all those
because all
guys
of
you mentioned, I'm dropping all those guys. Those
okay,
guys are all lower than me for me than they are for consensus.
okay, then it makes sense because again, if you are talking about those guys, everyone has a good wide receiver one in their ranks. Everyone, all of those have good tight ends too, even better than Njoku. All of those that they have. So I just don't see any reason. And Browns, Baker is kind of a egotist kind of a person. I feel that he's going to go for glory. He's going to pass more. He's like Aaron Rodgers. I think if he gets a chance, he will always want a passing touchdown rather than a rushing or something like that. So if he has good weapons, he will feed them all.
Right. And I'm my of those three, I'm lowest on Mike Williams, just
Oh yeah.
because they also have Melvin Gordon. They have
Yeah.
so many like top tier or like like they have so many top tier receiving options. It's similar to the Browns, but I think Jarvis Landry is the better overall talent than Williams, but
Mm.
it's
Because
still
if you talk about this, what makes sense, everyone has like Baker like their second or third QB in Dynasty, whereas
Not sane
Winston,
ones.
uh, why not? Like I think Baker has a great ceiling.
I
Um,
the only guy on the Browns offense that I'm buying honestly is Baker Mayfield, just because he has so many weapons that he's going to be throwing it so much, and he's going to get big numbers because there's so many guys to go to.
Yeah, after Mahomes and Luck, who do you think is safer than Baker? Or maybe
Maybe Aaron Rodgers.
Deshaun
no
Watson, Aaron
Watson.
Rodgers.
Maybe
No
maybe
Watson.
maybe Watson, maybe Rodgers.
Oh,
Just
confidently
all those three
Watson.
are
What?
all
No,
those
no,
three are in the same
no.
tier for
But
me.
would you take Rodgers over Baker? I wouldn't. Baker has like 15 years left.
Right.
Rodgers has
That you
5.
have to look at that
I'm
too
not.
for
Yeah,
Dynasty.
yeah.
I
I'm
look a
not taking.
little shorter term with quarterbacks because you're
No
so
way.
replaceable.
No, no.
I could
Again,
get Daniel Jones, scoop him
no.
up with
If
Aaron
it is a,
Rodgers. Yum.
no, if it is a lot of difference, then I look at that. But Rodgers and Baker have similar ceiling. And why
Rodgers
would I
could
take
play
a
for
older guy?
like more years than you think, though. That's what I think too. I could think he could age like Brady a little bit, different but different ways. But yeah,
So, but Baker is like 50 years younger than Rodgers, man. Come on.
but
I'm
Rodgers
not.
is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Baker hasn't done it yet.
No, agreed.
Mhm.
Everything. But Baker has all the weapons. Baker has all the talent. If you are talking like that, then why are you taking Mahomes over Rodgers? Mahomes has done it only for 1 year. Those arguments always get flawed. You are always projecting in a dynasty. We
But
are all
Mahomes has
projecting.
done it for 1 year with 50 touchdowns at a Hall
That's
of
okay.
Fame level season. Baker Mayfield threw for 27 touchdowns and
Yeah,
like a ton of interceptions. Let's
in
not
27
like
touchdown
pretend
in
like
like
he lit it
in
up.
10 or 12 starts. If you extend that to 16 starts, then it becomes around 35, and then you add OBJ to it.
He's not throwing over. How many touchdowns do you think he's throwing this year? Over 40? He ain't throwing over 40.
Baker Mayfield, I'm putting him at like
I'm putting
around
him
35.
around. I'm putting him around 40. But 35 is like the
33.
second. 35 is the second best. Mahomes 350, but then second best is 35.
There's a
Well,
Why?
lot of quarterbacks that are
he
going
had
to
Andrew
produce that
Luck
year,
with
though.
like
That's the problem.
39, 40.
Yeah, but I feel like just a lot of
So
quarterbacks are going
that's
to
why I
blow up
put
next year, too.
put Baker after Luck.
Right.
Is it?
All
I
right.
don't think it's worse. Baker can has like 27 touchdowns. He broke the rookie record, man.
I
So
just think there's
you
better values at the QB position that
All
have
right. I
similar
think
yeah,
ceilings.
in
Yeah,
if
can
redraft.
we move
everybody's
on from
yeah,
Baker
if everybody's
Mayfield?
done,
Okay.
Sony Michelle. We want to keep hearing your voice, so
Yeah.
tell us, Sony Michelle.
I really think
Selling?
Sonny Michel might be a low hanging fruit at this point. But again, I looked at his ADP and it just drove me insane that he's going in like early third right now. When there are so many other players that I would love to take over Michel. Michel has no receiving upside. The number one point that I have. Second is injury concerns recently. They have very good talent in their backfield already. Harris is a great, receiving and running, and bell cow type of player. And New England don't care who you are. They will always give the ball to the best players available. So Michelle is not safe in that respect. Third thing is Brady is up there in their age. The next 1-2 year, if Brady retires, what's going to happen there? So everything I see around Michelle, I don't see any upside, none whatsoever. You know which players are going after him? My favorite player, Johnson, is going after him in ADP. Again, I'm looking at the ADP at Fantasy Football Calculator. If Michelle is going down, then of course at some point he is going to become a value. But
Oh yeah.
right now I I don't want to do anything with Michelle. I would rather have Johnson. I would even have Fournette. Uh, Definitely, who is going after him? Guys has similar concerns than uh, Michelle, but I would rather have guys. Aaron Jones. So many good players who are going after him. Mac is going after him in Dynasty. These things just doesn't make sense to me, and that's why I have Michelle at pass. And again, many people are fading him right now, but I just went with the ADP game.
I think he's going to become a value. You talked about his ADP being early 30s, huh?
I'm seeing him as early third.
I got him in a sleeper draft in the 6th.
No, but that must be redraft, right?
No, Dynasty.
Sixth, okay. Six might.
Sixth
I
round,
just
that's a
think he's.
value.
I just think he's very risky, man. I mean, maybe
That's
this year
fair.
he does well, but in sixth round you can have Penny. I think Penny is much more safe than Michelle at this point. What do you think?
He hasn't been at camp. It's not because of injury, by the way. I just want people to know that. Like, he's going to come back to camp soon, and he's going to skyrocket back up. So that's why I'm saying buy him while he keeps going down, and then you can sell him later. It's not someone I want to
Yeah,
keep forever. I didn't buy him year one even. I do think he has more upside than you think, though, because it is a top offense that is starting to run the ball more and more each year. And he did catch passes in college. Now it hasn't translated in year one, but it could have translated before, considering he caught passes in college. Sure, possible. We've seen it.
I don't think so. Like
But as
all
long as
their
James White's there, probably not a
no
great. But
White and
keep
Harris and Burkhead, everyone is a better pass catcher than him. Like I don't think he's going to get targets in that backfield.
I
And
think Harris is a little over dramatic, and that's why people are bumping him down. Pats will just draft the best player available, man. They'll draft like four. They draft a cornerback every year in the second round. I'm telling you, every year is a defensive back in the second round. They just draft BPA. Just something else to consider. Maybe Harris, we're overhyping him a little bit. Maybe it
yeah,
was just a Patriots culture fit.
six is a good value in the sense that you can sell him later, but you should not keep him. That's my point, and I think you agree with that.
I'd rather
That
have
if
him than Kenyon Drake this year. I guess that's kind of bold now, but I
no,
feel.
no, I don't think so. This year
Also, keep in
in
mind I'm a Patriots fan, so he has that extra boost of me hyping him
yeah,
up.
in
Don't
redraft I
forget what
would
he did
not.
in playoffs, though. Playoffs, he's a beast. He doesn't need to catch
Yeah,
passes to put up
but
good
but
fantasy
you think
numbers.
Harris is and in playoffs the Patriots were just beating all the other teams. They were not able to score. Other thing is that do you
Oh,
think
that's
Harris
just
is
the
just
Super Bowl. Not being
no
able to score, they put up like 40 points on the Chiefs and Chargers. They scored plenty.
no the Chiefs only scored in the second
30
half.
something.
The second
No,
half and
yeah.
yeah, and you can look at the second half carries for Michelle. They were not a lot. So again, I mean, and I don't think Patriots are such kind of organization that they draft a player and not use him. Harris will
First,
be used for sure, and Whites is not going anywhere. I just
Michelle's
don't.
first round ADP, though.
That's fine. Harris is a third round ADP, and the other thing is Patriots don't give a crap about the ADP. They have never done it. They never will. They just
That's
liked
fair.
him a lot. That's why they drafted him. But now I didn't. I think they realize that his workload should go down a bit.
Hey, if it's, for me, I don't. I feel like he'll finish higher than people who are lower on him think he will, but people who are higher on him, he'll finish lower than what they think, if that makes sense. So he's one of those players that will just kind of finish in the middle of what people expect him to and won't, just because he's going to get so much work in that Pats offense. As long as he can stay on the field, we can all agree, right? And it
Yeah,
could be something like
but
Kenyon
again,
Drake where it's hard to predict game to game, but pros
but
and cons to each player,
I don't
right?
want an injury, right? I don't want someone like same thing for Todd Gurley.
Oh, Todd Gurley, fade, fade, fade.
Yeah, why are you saying Todd Gurley fade, and not Michelle? Same thing. Michelle had a worse injury than Gurley did college, and he's also getting some knee scope done and those things. So why are and Gurley is a much better pass catcher than Michelle is. Talking about
Because
that,
Gurley's ADP is way higher.
it's going right now. It's around end of second, and
Gurley's ADP is not end of second. I've seen him go way earlier than that. Just personal experience, I
no,
guess.
no, Gurley in Dynasty is maybe when I say end of second, I'm not saying 212. I'm saying 2.8, 2.9. He's
I
going
still think
2.8.
I don't think Michelle's going 301 or 302 in the leagues I see either. I don't know.
I have seen a couple of drafts when I have done recently. Gurley is around 2.8, 2.9, and Michelle was going around 3.6, 3.7. So I will not, take Michelle one round later than Gurley because their upside uh, not even close. Why would I take Michelle? I would not take Michelle until it is like sixth round, as you said.
Hey, I guess I'm a little higher on Michelle, which kind of makes sense. I think once his ADP skyrockets back down, when it's trending downwards, I'm gonna buy low, and I'm gonna sell high once it skyrockets back. But to
No,
each their own.
exactly what I said, that you
Yeah,
have to
you
sell him.
agree
You
with me.
cannot keep him. I
I
don't
never
think you
even
can.
bought him as a Patriots fan,
Yeah.
so it's just something to think about. I have him
Any
in a couple of leagues, but
any comments, Stanton?
yeah, T-Dog, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd probably look at him like 5th round, probably right
Fifth
around
round.
there.
Me too.
But the issue is it's the proven committee, and he's not like the Pats pass the ball to their running backs a lot, like we said, and he's not that receiving threat, so he's not going to be on the field like all the time. He's going to be on the field a decent bit, and he's going to run for them. The majority of their rushes are going to be through him, but he's not going to be catching the ball, which would be what would give him that upside of all the other guys around him.
That's fair. There's definitely some more upside picks around his ADP. So,
Yes, exactly.
hey, for all three of our names, I think we can all agree. They don't necessarily hit the player. There's a lot of pros to each of them. Kenyon Drake, Jarvis Landry, Sony Michel. Tons of pros to each of them. We just hate where they're going right now. And this video, when you're watching today, this was recorded on July 7th, 2019. Things can change. So,
Yep.
These aren't permanent. Maybe I
And
could be higher on my guy. Maybe you could be lower on your guy. Whatever, right?
any couple of guys you just want to throw out, just the names, no no
No.
analysis for pass or smash.
Oh yeah. So Smash, David Montgomery was going to be the other name I did. Pass was going to be Leonard Fournette too for Smash. I like those two backs. Pass was going to be Todd Gurley.
Okay.
Pass for me was Damian Williams, and smash would be I'd have to say Kenyon Drake, but you were already doing him, so
Do you have one more name? I know you also wanted to pass on Nick Chubb. Do you have just one more Smash for the audience?
I maybe maybe Sterling Shepard. I don't know,
You
because he's a
love
wide
Sterling
receiver
Shepard.
one.
No, I like
He's
Sterling
going so
Shepard too.
deep.
Actually, I was going to take his name, but my pass will be Mark Ingram, and my smash would be Ridley.
Calvin Ridley, not bad. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm kind of warming up to Ridley a little more. I just, he's older, so I guess it's less sexy. With that being said, though, that's all the time we have here today. We want to get you on our way. Good news, though, here. We're going to start rebranding a little bit. We have a Twitter page. Make sure to follow that. We're going to start getting these into MP3s here on the podcast Apple. I just figured out a way to do that. So hopefully from now on you'll be hearing these without having those technical difficulties, as well as we should be expanding to more podcast platforms. From myself and the rest of the crew, good luck with your rookie drafts that are going on right now. They could be, and have a fantastic